planning my Game Week 29 FPL free hit team. Now, the systematic process I'm going to go through is I'm not just going to pick an outright starting 11 straight away. I am actually going to go through each matchup, each team, and work out which players I would even consider for my team and hopefully get a shortlist of at least 11 players. It may not even be possible because, let's be honest, there's not a lot of good fixtures to choose from. But anything above 11 would be a good number. So, looking at the easiest fixture first, I'm looking at Brentford, who are playing against Burnley. Burnley have done nothing all year. They're tied last with Sheffield United. Not a force to be reckoned with. So, I'm thinking of going for a Brentford triple up. Now, obviously, Ivan Toney has got to be there. No questions about it. He's Brentford's main man. Next up, I would like to consider a Brentford double up on defence because, let's be honest, no other Brentford attacker really does anything except maybe Wissa. But let's be honest, he doesn't do much either. And I'd be looking to pick Flecken along with Adjer. I'm definitely saying his name wrong, but I'm picking him because he is the most secured minutes out of all the Brentford back line, and he could play wing back. You never know. Then, looking at Burnley players, at first glance, you don't want to pick any because they're Burnley players. But I go to look at the predicted points, and I find out some Burnley defenders are predicted more points than all of the Brentford defenders, and I just cannot wrap my head around it. Like, I know Brentford they've not been great defensively in underlying data-wise. But there's no way in hell on earth Burnley players could be higher on predicted points than Brentford players, especially in the defence. So this one's kind of perplexed me a little bit. I've got the thought in the back of my mind, but I'm still not considering picking a Burnley defender because I feel like that's just silly. Especially to do on a free hit. Out of all the players you could bring in, you choose a bloody Burnley defender? Mate, that is not going to be me. So while it's quite interesting, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to stick with the 3 Brentford players on the shortlist to begin with. The next matchup to look at is Nottingham Forest versus Luton. Now, this is an important game because it's a relegation battle 6-pointer. If you look at the table, you can see they're both battling it out to stay above 18th place. I think it's going to be either one of those two teams going down, and they both know that as well. So they're both going to be pushing for the win. And that's why it would be good to stack up in the attack of both teams. Well, I say stack up. I don't mean stack up because you don't want a lot of them. There's very few to choose from. But you want to get one from each at least. The ones I'm considering, first of all, is Morris from Luton. Now, he's not a great FPL asset, but he's the best Luton player. And if anyone's going to score for them in a relegation battle playoff, it's going to be him. So he's going in my team. Or at least he's going on the shortlist of potential players in my team. Then from Nottingham Forest, Anthony Elanga has been pulling in a lot of expected goals recently, and this is mainly because he keeps finding himself at the back post, one-on-one with the keeper, or sometimes even an open goal. He has been underperforming his expected goals, but the fact the data's there and the fact we know he can finish on his day, he's definitely a lethal asset to be considering, so he's going on the roster as well. Finally, I'm going to pick Doughty. This is just because he's high ownership, and if he does get the odd goal contribution or somehow gets a clean sheet, I'll want him there because I don't want to take that risk of just not owning him for the fun of it. I don't think he's going to do that well, but it's one of those players where you just have to pick it to be safe, and I may as well do it. Also, if I didn't pick him, I would honestly have no idea what other defender to pick anyway. So I'm just going to go with Doughty. He's probably going straight into the team. Whereas Morris and Elanga, maybe no guarantee as of yet, but we'll see as we progress through the roster. We are currently 50% of the way looking through all the matchups and all the teams. I've currently chosen how many to be on the shortlist. We've got 3 from Brentford and then 3 from Forest versus Luton. So that's halfway through with 6 players chosen. It looks like I will not have many benching headaches, guys. I really won't. Now, guys, we're going to look at Tottenham versus Fulham. I'm definitely going to get Son in the team. He's probably going to be the captain. He is a non-negotiable. I'm also going to consider another Tottenham attacker. Probably Maddison. He's the second best one. Just because I can't pass up that opportunity with a matchup against Fulham. It's probably the only other good matchup except for Brentford versus Burnley. All the other matchups are quite even, so it'd be silly not to take advantage of it. Now, Maddison's underlying data recently has not been amazing. We all know what he can be in the Spurs team. We all know what he's done earlier this year. So I may take a punt on him. It could pay off. I'm not too sure. Looking at the Fulham side of things, okay, first of all, I'm not backing the Fulham defender. I'm not doing it. I can see Tottenham scoring at least a couple. Now, I go to look at the Fulham attack, and I think, okay, Muniz is there. Andreas Pereira is there. They've got some decent underlying data, some expected goals for Muniz, expected assists for Pereira. But then I go to look at Tottenham, and I see they're actually, I think, 4th best in terms of expected goals conceded and expected clean sheets, meaning they're going to be a very tough team to break down. So I don't really want to back Fulham attackers when there's so many other teams I can choose attackers from. So no Fulham players are going on the shortlist. And despite Fulham's previous high-scoring games, I think they got 2-5-0s in a row at some point, they're not good goal scorers. They don't usually score much in games. That is why I'm going to be choosing Pedro Porro to go on the shortlist as well, along with Son and Maddison, because Porro actually has a decent amount of assist potential there. And I wouldn't write off a clean sheet from Tottenham either, because Fulham recently, they've not been scoring a lot, like, at all. So keep your eye out for him. That is now 9 players on the roster with 1 matchup to go. Let's look into Aston Villa versus West Ham. Oliver Watkins, you go straight into my team, mate. Along with Watkins, I'm also going to consider Leon Bailey. I think he has it just slightly over Douglas Luiz. I know Douglas Luiz is on penalties, but I don't want to back a CDM first of all. Guys, I know he plays a bit advanced, he plays a bit further forward. I still don't want to back a CDM. I'd much rather back a winger who also has better underlying data than a CDM. It just makes sense. But remember, he's not even guaranteed in the first place, so we'll see how it looks. I know a lot of people may be thinking it's time to consider Aston Villa defender, and I thought the same thing as well until I looked across the last 4 games. They're actually on the same expected goals conceded as Sheffield United and Manchester United. So I'm going to backtrack from that. I'm not going to pick an Aston Villa defender because now I really think about it, defensively, they've not been great in recent games. So it's definitely a defense to stay away from it, if I'm being completely honest. I was going to go for Moreno, but I'm not doing it anymore. Still not a bad option if you want to go for it. He could prove me wrong. I'm just not backing it. So there we've got 2 potential players from Aston Villa, which makes up 11 players on the shortlist, meaning we can at least field a team, which is the good thing. Stress is gone. And finally, let's look at West Ham. First of all, looking at how Aston Villa's expected goals conceded was quite high, I want to pick Jared Bowen. We all know why I want to pick Jared Bowen. He's clearly the best West Ham attacker. He's a midfielder that plays at striker. He's been great this year. In fact, great is an understatement, okay? He's someone I definitely want in my team. Now, no forwards for West Ham even really play, do they? So I'm not going to consider them. The midfield options alongside Bowen is Kudus and James Ward-Prowse, who have nice purple patches. They have spikes of good form, but they're never truly consistent, and that's why I don't want to pick them, because also their data does not back them. Guys, I am a bit of a data nerd, like, so sue me, you know? The stats are what gets me the wins. It's why I'm going to be top 10k in the next couple game weeks. And no West Ham defenders for me, let's be honest. Aston Villa are going to score. Which brings us to the final roster of players. We've managed to think of 12 players that may actually be good for free hit in game week 29. Which is good because I'm glad there's more than 11. My benching headache, really, 2 players I'm considering benching is either Maddison or Leon Bailey. Considering Maddison has bad underlying data and hasn't done much recently. And Leon Bailey, like, he's been doing pretty well recently, but do you really want to pick him over anyone else up there? I know what people are thinking. Maybe you play him over Morris or Elanga. But like I said earlier, the stakes in that game are so high. I think they're both going to be hungry for goals. That is why I'm going to keep them both on the pitch. And that's kind of my thought process at the moment. Remember, I am recording this before Game Week 28 is finished, so something new might come out, some new data that I might consider. So this isn't my final locked-in team, but it's definitely something close to it. Let me know what you guys disagree with. Let me know what you agree with. Thanks for watching.